Hello there and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So last episode, I just chatted with you. It was actually quite enjoyable. It was just a good conversation about life in general and things that I've been noticing and paying attention to and things that have shifted. And so today we're actually going to talk about being resourceful. So if you have spent any time with me, you know that I love kind of the million dollar version of you exercise is one of my favorites to do. I often talk about that a lot. And one of the things I recall from probably the first time I did that exercise was identifying the fact that I am very resourceful. And then actually I had this come to me in a download. Let me see if I can find it quickly because I really did love it. If I can find it quickly, probably not now that I'm talking about it. Okay, so I got this from a download back in March of 2024. So 2 years ago, I remember I was out for a run and the download was, you are not the source, you are a resource. And I thought, well, that's really fun because it was pivotal to me. I can speak today. It was pivotal to me because I was concerned about not having the information for somebody. I was concerned about not being good enough, not being worthy enough, not having the answer for something, for being, the end all and be all. And so this download came through to just remind me that I have so much available to me and that I don't need to have the pressure of being the source. That's God's job. God is the source. You can say universe, Mother Nature, whichever you resonate with. I use God because I resonate with that one. And God is the source. And so naturally, I am a resource of God, but that also makes me available to all of the other resources here on earth. And I can find things out when I need to. And I am someone who doesn't have to be right. I have no problem saying, I'm not entirely sure of that. Let me check and get back with you. Because I want to make sure that I am giving people the best information that I have. Always with an open mind, going, okay, hey, here's what I know. Here's what has worked for me. Take it or leave it. If something works for you, cool. If it doesn't, also okay. Because I know that whatever comes through my podcast will help somebody in some shape or form. And it's not my job to know exactly what that is. And when I remove that pressure of saying, okay, this is exactly how this is going to help that person, when I remove that pressure, it allows me to channel more and be a better resource, right? So the vision that comes through for this, or the imagery that comes through, is like a mountain stream, okay? At the very top of that mountain is a snow cap. That is melting some of the time, not always, right? But it starts somewhere at the source, right? The source of the river is the start of the river. And the thing about this is that there is so much life that teems around a stream, right? Around a stream is just teeming with life, right? There's life everywhere around the water's edge. If you're a stream, now think of all the streams that filter into lakes, and then the lakes filter into other little streams, and then you've got some big rivers, right, that are larger resources. You've got smaller little streams that, maybe gurgle along the way. But it's the stagnant water where there isn't much hanging around, right? The thing that comes to mind immediately is the Dead Sea. It is called the Dead Sea for a reason, right? There is not a lot of life around that sea. if any, right? It's very high concentrated in salt. It's not going very far if it does go somewhere. But if you think about where the streams go, where the river goes, there is life there. That's how, you know, people initially settled, was by the river, because they needed the water for their crops. They were by the resource. Some of them went so far as to go up to the source of the river, right? And they would move it and shift it and make the water go where they wanted it to, so that it was a better resource for them. But I say all of this because my husband and I are working on one of our businesses that we're working on. We had some people lined up to help. We're getting involved in real estate. And we had some people lined up to help. And so I had reached out to them and said, hey, like, here's the address. Here's what we need. Are you willing to help? And the first guy I spoke to immediately said, nope, I don't want to do that. And I panicked not really panicked, but I was deflated. We'll use that word, because it definitely wasn't panic. I was deflated for a second, because I was like, okay, well, this was somebody that we had been referred to. You know, I felt really good about this person. And so I said, okay, well, this job needs to be done and I'm resourceful, so let's figure it out. And I immediately went to social media. I ended up having 3 or 4 people reach out to me saying they were willing to do the job if I gave them the scale of it, whatever it was. Crisis averted in a matter of minutes. But sometimes we hang out in this crisis mode. We get something from it. Somewhere deep inside, it feeds us, whatever that might be, right? Reminds me of like Hey in the movie Moana, who just runs around and screams, right? Ah! You know, he's a crisis chicken. He shows up sometimes and is resourceful sometimes, but most of the time he's a crisis chicken. There are people who feed off of the crises. Probably not the people I really want to hang out with all the time, right? And so it also reminds me of I saw a post the other day, and someone had said, for someone who seems to have it all figured out, or it was phrased, you worry a lot for someone who always figures it out. And I thought, oh, that's good. Because sometimes I do catch myself worrying about things that all work out in the end. And that's something I've really been working on, and God's really been prepping me for, is why are you panicked about this if it's going to take just 2 more days to get the thing? It'll be okay. Does it irritate you? Yeah. But you're not dying. It's all right to be uncomfortable for a couple of days if it's going to work out better in the end anyways. And it's just a good reminder that sometimes we do go into panic mode when something doesn't go our way. But if you step back for just a second or 2 and you clear the anxiety, often you can see much clearer. And this is really the power of being grounded and really focusing your energy and knowing, you know, what it is that's actually coming up for you, being incredibly self-aware, less aware of the world, right? Because we can only control so much of what happens in the world, and much more self-aware. As you become much more self-aware, you start to see how there's these little things that will get you. And then you go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why I'm feeling this way, right? So, for instance, my husband was getting ready to head out for travel this week, and I had this familiar feeling of angst and annoyance and all the things, and I caught it, and I thought, wow, that really feels like pre-deployment. He was on the phone. That's what it was. He was on the phone, and we were putting dinner together, and he was having this grand old conversation with his boss. And I was so agitated with the conversation. And he got off the phone and I said, listen, we've got just a few more hours left with you. Your boss can wait. But I realized that that was like my pre-deployment angst of counting down until I was trying to handle it all on my own, kind of a thing. And it was really interesting to see it in that moment because it wasn't a deployment. He wasn't leaving for 6 to 12 months. It's a few days, but that feeling came right back up and reared its ugly head. And so I just kind of sat with it and I said, okay, well, that's interesting. How can we do better here? How can we be better here? Yeah. And again, this resourcefulness and the self-awareness, that's where you actually start to change and to create the life that you want. When you become self-aware, not in the judgy way, right? Because judging yourself is probably not going to get you very far. But I like to tell my clients to be objective about these things. If they were standing outside of themselves, if they have children, I often use their children as examples, right? If your child were going through this same thing that you're struggling with, how would you speak to them? Would you berate them? Would you yell and scream at them? Or would you try to understand where they were coming from and help them see the situation differently? I would hope that you would try to see it differently and not berate them, because nobody's going to be open to a different perspective when they're getting yelled at, right? You aren't. You're immediately on the defense when somebody raises their voice at you. And so if you can look at yourself objectively, it allows you to actually move through things with a whole lot more grace and love than if you run around judging yourself for something, right? One thing that I know trips me up from time to time is I feel like I should have it right by now, right? Like, why do I keep hitting my head against the wall on this thing? And I've really anchored into this idea of refining, right? Like, no, I didn't get it right this time, but did I learn something new this time around? And if I didn't learn something new this time around, then I need to slow down and actually look at it. How am I reacting in this situation that's not allowing me to actually respond? And slow it down and say, okay, well, I have all of these resources available to me, as well as the source. So let's see if we can figure this out together. As my mentor likes to say, one of my mentors likes to say, it's you and me against the limit, right? How do we navigate that together? Interesting. So I'm going to sign off here. This feels complete to me. So I am sending you a whole lot of love. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.